Hello and welcome to Softline. I am Nancy Vanigo and today I'll be doing the show alone. But don't worry, it will still be very entertaining, educative, informative, I promise you. So today we confront a harsh reality. Domestic violence is a silent killer, shattering lives and families across Nigeria. Well, according to the WHO World Health Organization 2019, 30% of Nigerian women experience physical violence from their partners. The National Demographic and Health Survey 2018 reveals that 45% of women in Nigeria have faced physical, sexual, and emotional violence. Now, 42.2% of women in the northern region has also experienced domestic violence, the highest nationwide. Well, UNICEF also reported in 2017 that 60% of Nigerian men believe the wife beating is justified. The consequences are devastating. 1 in every 5 women experiences domestic violence during pregnancy. Survivors face increased risk of HIV, unintended pregnancy, and maternal mortality. It is time to break the silence. Let's unite to protect our mothers, sisters, and daughters. So join me and my guest today, Engineer Dr. Egan Adets Okon-Effiong, an engineer majoring in renewable energy. I don't know why she chose renewable energy. Anyway, we're going to find out from her. She's also a certified domestic violence therapist whose vision is aimed at fostering healing to victims, empowering them, and ensuring social change. Today, we will unmask domestic violence, recognize the signs, and support survivors. But before we dive into the discussion proper, let's go for a very short break. And when we come back, I'll bring in my guests. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Step into the heartbeat of the world where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first face.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
All right, thank you for being there and welcome back. So, Dr. Egan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Good afternoon.
It's nice having you. So let's start. Let me start from what actually sparked this, this journey of yours. Your job as a certified therapist for people who are being domestically violated. I would like to know what actually sparked this passion, and how has your job evolved over the years?
Okay, Nancy, what actually sparked this journey for me is having lived and grown up in an environment where, as growing children, we're living in face me, I face you. What we call face me, I face you in Nigeria. And in that compound, we had about 12 tenants. And then every other day, we discovered that there were these 2 families that would always fight and quarrel and make sure that no other person in that compound had peace. So for us, as people who were neighbors to them, it was challenging for us as growing children. It also affected us. So I grew up telling myself that this thing can destroy a child's future. And so because of that, when I grew up, I was going to be one of those that will be advocating against domestic violence. Because at the end of the day, these families ended up having children who were dropped out from school. So it also affected the future of the children. So I said to myself that when I grew up, I was going to fight this monster because it did not only affect their own children, it also affected us and others who were their neighbors. So that's the ripple effects of domestic violence in the society.
You know, it's quite amazing how something you experienced while you were a child was able to propel your zeal to want to help that situation, even as an adult. Not so many people can, plan this and you also carry it through. So that's amazing, and I love that. Thank you so much for doing that. All right, so now let's talk about how prevalent is domestic violence in our society.
Nancy, it will shock you to know that the prevalence in our society is enormous. Now, research has it that domestic violence is widely spread in our society. Let me use Nigeria as a case study.
All right.
Like you rightly said, according to the Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey and reports from organizations like the United Nations and the World Health Organization, approximately 30% to 50% of women in Nigeria have experienced some form of violence from their partners in their lifetime. And let me also shock you, about 10% of men are also victims. That's the truth, but they hardly will speak out. So some reports suggest that intimate partners violence is particularly high in some regions, maybe due to the cultural belief that is being resisted now. Those cultural beliefs are beginning to be challenged because of social media. So domestic violence is the way it's being prevailed in Nigeria is it's enormous and it's shocking.
Okay, so let's talk about the signs. How do we recognize this? Because sometimes we see these things happening, but then the victims will come out and tell us that this is how it should be, or this is how they want it to be. So how do we recognize these, signs when we see them?
We have subtle signs and we also have overt signs. So let me start with the subtle signs of domestic violence. First and foremost, the victims may become increasingly isolated. That's what the abuser does. They isolate you from your friends, they isolate you from your families and all social activities. You will also notice changes in their mood. They become very anxious, they get into depression, or they operate withdrawal. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
They also have frequent excuses. The victims will always give you very vague excuses why they should not attend, for instance, an girl association, or they are not able to attend, they cannot meet up with appointments. They begin to have signs of diminished self-worth, or they constantly doubt the ability of their own self. The victims also exhibit signs of fear. They are always anxious when discussing with their partners. The victims may also have limited access to money, of course, when it comes to economic abuse. They deprive them of money, or because they are dependent on their partner or financial decisions. So the partner may excessively monitor every activity of the victim. Sometimes they can call their partners 20 times in a day, and you think that it is love. It is not love. It is just because of who they are. So they use their standard to judge you. The victims may also express confusion about their perceptions of feelings due to the manipulations that the abusers have exerted on them. So when I want to talk about the overt signs of domestic violence, you will talk about visible bruises. I've seen women that have been poured acid on. I've seen men that have been stabbed to death. So you have visible bruises, cuts, or other injuries the victims, cannot adequately explain. You may see someone in the office with very serious bruise, and you're asking the person, and the person is telling you he or she fell down. And I'm wondering, how did you fall? And this eye is swollen like this with black spots. There's regular intense arguments in public. Every discussion gets them agitated. They destroy properties very, very easily. If they have a little quarrel, they want to destroy everything. Those are the very overt signs. So sometimes they have direct or indirect threats or harms towards the victims or their loved ones. They use very, very, very threatening gestures. They can use, in fact, they can throw anything at you. I've seen someone threw sword on his wife.
Wow.
In fact, as he flung the sword, the woman dodged and the thing fell from their duplex down.
Wow.
The victims are always belittled, they are insulted in public, they are demeaned in front of others. The abusers always manipulates and controls them, right? So they control the kind of relationship they keep, they control everything about them. Sometimes they even force them into having sexual intercourse and manipulate them. Because how can you finish abusing your wife and then you still want to have a sexual relationship with her? So it's those are the overt signs of domestic violence.
Oh, that's terrible. All right, now let's go, because most of these survivors, or some of these victims, before they become survivors, some of these victims can't really speak up for themselves. You know, some time ago, I spoke to someone, just like you said, who had some bruises on her face. And then I asked her what happened, how she got those bruises on her face. And she told me she fell. So when you gave that example, I began to wonder if we're talking about the same person. So which means this is a regular thing. It's common. It's a common thing, you know. So
yes.
Probably I should look into her case now, you know, to understand what exactly happened to her on that day. But let's talk about the signs, you know, potential signs. How can families and friends recognize these potential red flags when we see them in a relationship?
Okay, so we need to be more critical with our family members now. Sometimes when we have our friends and families that are married, we just abandon them. We do not check on them. So when the partner frequently displays jealousy over their friends, this is what the abusers do. They will give the friends of the victims all sorts of names. They even name tag their family. Sometimes they can even say their mothers are witches or their fathers are wizards. They give all kinds of names just to make sure that they isolate you from your friends. So when you begin to see someone who was your friend isolated totally from you as a friend or as a family member, you need to watch that out. Something is beginning to be wrong with that friend or family member of yours. They control aspects of the person's life. They control what they wear. So my husband does not want me to wear this. My husband does not like me to do this. My husband, watch out. That person is going through a lot in their marriages. So as family members, we also need to watch out. They often belittle and criticize other people. So they will criticize their own family members to them and criticize even their friends. They even criticize their own family members. I mean, the abusers themselves criticize their own family members to the victims. So they make sure that they put the victims in a confined situation that is only accessible to them. The partners will always exhibit extreme mood swing. They create unpredictable and very tense environments at all times. So as a friend, you will not want to visit your friend, because there's always tension in that house when you go there. So you know that your friend is going through a lot, or the family member. You cannot tell me that as a mother, for instance, Nancy, that you will stay and your own daughter will not reach out to you for weeks, for months. Something is wrong. Something is absolutely wrong. So you need to check it. We've seen one of our very favorite and famous singer in this country that died, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that was investigated was that her mother never, and her twin sister never had access to her for years.
Exactly.
So they didn't know that she was going through a lot. She was being abused by this husband of hers. And so he made sure that he took her away. So when you see that, you need to be interested as a family member and as a friend.
You know,
and then what most abusers do is when they meet who they want to get married to, they want to quickly consummate these marriages because they don't want the red flags to show. So they're in a hurry. So as a family, you must be interested. No, we need to know you a little bit before you go into a relationship with her.
Wow. I know somebody somewhere will want to contest some of these points you've just given, but there are things we have to look at for. I remember the case of Osinachi, the lady we were talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, but my question now, is this the usual modus operandi of these abusers, or, I don't know, why is it something they all do? Why is it common among them?
When I speak like this, my friends will say, are you telling us that abusers come from the same grandparents? Nancy, abusers come from the same lineage. I don't know how that works, because every abuser you see, compare that abuser with another abuser, they have the same traits.
Wow.
So they behave the same way, 90%. Those red flags that you need to watch out for, that you will see, right? If you watch another abuser, 1, 2, 3, 4 to 10, Nancy, 9 of them have the same. They behave the same way. Those traits are there, right? That is why I also encourage that people should cut. When you go into courtship, I know that the religious people will come out to begin to say, hey, but look here, you need to cut to know the partner you want to spend the rest of your life with. We are more interested for you to cut it when it is not yet too far, than for you to go into that marriage, get abused. We either lose you or the marriage is over. So which is cheaper for us, Nancy?
Someone would say people can pretend, and people change like chameleons, People can pretend for as long as they want to, and then as soon as they get into the marriage, it's a different ball game. But then I know no matter how someone pretends, there is this subtle evidence of who they truly are. Somehow it will surely show. So it's now left for us to pay attention and all that. Okay, so that takes me to my next question. People usually confuse, or they say there is no difference between emotional abuse, financial abuse, and physical abuse. Could you please tell us the difference between these three things?
There's a very huge difference between emotional abuse. Okay, so I was just setting one example this afternoon. Men usually suffer emotional abuse, right? So it is always very difficult for you to show proof that you are abused as a man, because a woman who wants to abuse a man will not go physical. It is only 1% that goes physical. So they usually will go emotionally. Take, for instance, the woman knows that it is her responsibility to make sure that she gives her husband food, right? And also make sure that the man benefits everything that is entailed in marriage, including satisfaction. Then the woman stands up and begins to deprive the man of that satisfaction. What will happen to the man? The man his mind begins to go haywire, right? And then if he comes from a Christian home or a highly religious home, he's not expected to commit any form of adultery, right? So he dies in silence in that home. That is emotional abuse. He cannot even say it to anyone. So he's going through a lot in his mind. You are abusing him emotionally because you're not giving him the satisfaction that is due him. He married you and married everything. So you're supposed to satisfy him both in and out. So if you do that, you're giving him emotional abuse. Psychological abuse, it transcends from emotion and begins to affect the mind, and begins also to affect him psychologically. Everything begins to be strange. Things that he's not supposed to be thinking about, he begins to think about them. If you are not careful as a wife, you push him out, and he begins to do things that is against his own conscience, right? Because he needs to be satisfied. Or the other option for him will be to seek for a divorce. But when you want to seek for a divorce as a man who is emotionally abused, what will you say that is the cause? So it transfers from emotional abuse to psychological abuse. Physical abuse is when we begin to see those physical scars. So many men, so many women are victims of physical abuse. Because of course, you know the man. The man is always in charge, right? He raises his hand and he hits you. He can hit you with anything. I have a case I'm handling, Nancy, as I speak with you. The man beats the woman with 4 children every other day. In fact, recently said to her, give me your phone. Remove your SIM card. He got the phone from her and smashed it. Okay? Severally, he has carried television, hit the television on the woman. In fact, there's nothing she has not seen. So physical abuse enables us to see the physical scars. Emotional abuse is always very, very difficult, except the victim speaks out. But physical abuse, even you, Nancy, if you have a neighbor who is physically abused, you can run to us and quickly say, I have a neighbor that is in trouble, can you help? But if it's a neighbor who is going through emotional and psychological abuse, I'm sure you won't even know how to help.
You know, I just want us to talk more on this physical and emotional abuse, because I know a lot of people are guilty of it. And sometimes some of this physical abuse can be something that is started from emotional abuse, because there's a point you push somebody to, and the person will be forced to react. Like when you deprive people or deprive your partner of some certain things emotionally, and then he becomes tired of it and then, you know, pounces back at you physically. Because you have the evidence, you'll be the one to win the case. So let's talk a little more on this physical abuse. Apart from the one we have with the partners, what other way can people abuse other persons emotionally?
Nancy, as a parent, you can abuse your children emotionally.
How so?
I'm sure you know that.
Let me know.
So you can abuse, of course, children nowadays are reacting. You tell them to do something they feel is not proper, they'll tell you, Mom, that is not proper. But in our days, you cannot say that to your parents. It is a yes. You dare not try it. Like those days, you tell your child, I want you to be a medical doctor. I want you to be an engineer. And they are, yes, daddy, yes, mommy. Now you tell these children, and then you are forcing them to do what they are not supposed to do. So they are struggling with everything. You are not even interested in how they feel and what is their competence. They are being abused emotionally. So parents also abuse children emotionally. Senior people, older people abuse younger people emotionally. You speak to us rudely, we cannot react, because by our training as Africans, we are not supposed to speak back to an adult, someone who is older than us, right? So you abuse me and I'm forced to keep quiet because the society says I need to respect you. But, well, these 21st century children, they call them Gen Z. If you do that, a child will tell you, Mommy, you're speaking rudely. They said, Dad, that was rude. So older people also abuse people emotionally. Like our spouses will abuse themselves emotionally. So emotional abuse is more dangerous. I say it all the time, because that has to be stopped inside your heart. It affects your emotion, right? And what is in you is what you bring out. It is when you have reached the apex, you cannot control it anymore. That's when you have the outbursts. So physical begins to step in after serious emotional abuse. And then you see that verbal abuse. It will start from verbal, and then you trust us women now. We are gifted with our mouths. So you bring it, we give it to you 100 times. The men cannot handle it, and they go physical. So it transcends like that. From emotional to verbal to physical. It gets very physical.
All right, now let's talk about barriers to seeking help. You know, once people are faced with this kind of challenges, what are the most significant barriers that stops women from seeking help when they are faced with this kind of a problem?
Societal stigma. That's the first thing. When they are faced with this challenge of abuse, the first thing that comes into their mind is, supposing I decide to walk out, what would the society think about me? What will my family say? What would the church or the mosque, what would the religious setting say? That's the first thing that happens. That's the first thing that sets into your mind. And then after that, finance is also a barrier. Because if the victim is dependent on the abuser, right, financially, the person is incompetent or is not capable to take care of his or her responsibility outside, the person will be forced to stay in that abusive marriage. After that, the other thing that deprives them from stepping out, some of them will say, oh, for the sake of my children. But my big question is always, supposing you are killed, what happens to the children? Like you mentioned Osinachi. Osinachi died, right? And we all know that the husband is in prison. So what is happening to the children? Wouldn't it have been better for her to have stepped out if the church had allowed her? And then she's alive to take care of the children today. Now the both of them are not available for the children. So those are the barriers, the societal stigma, financial burden, where to run to, shelter. When it happens, sometimes you can see abusers abusing their victims up to 2, 3 a.m. and even throw them out of this house and lock them outside. Where is the shelter? So if we have provision for that, if they know that, see, we have somewhere we can step in and we get help, I think those barriers will be sorted. So it is the societal stigma that is the first and major barrier.
You know, you talk about having somewhere to go when they finally come out of such, environment, toxic environment. But let's talk more about, how to mitigate this kind of a problem. How to address societal pressure, how to address stigma. What are the many ways we can address these issues?
Let's start with the roots, Nancy.
Okay.
My advice, I will always say that before you get married, don't negotiate it. You need to sit on the table with your would-be spouse. Discuss, have effective and open communication on your values. These are the things that I do and these are the things that I like. How about you? Let's have it together. Let's put it on the table. Will it be okay by us? When we nip it at the root, we won't even get to domestic violence. So this is who I am, and this is what I like to do. Are you okay by it? Is a yes or is a no? If it is a no, I can't change. Okay, so let's end it here. But if it is a yes, okay, let's fine. So we roll. So are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? So I keep advocating that come to the table and bring your values together. When you are okay with the values, you can now step further to get married. When you get married, love will naturally come. I hear people say we married because of love. If you marry because of love without looking at the values, the love will get faded, because it is the values that is the stimulant to love, and that is what sustains the marriage forever. So when we get it right at the beginning, I know that some people will come up to say, our religion say we should not cut. Why will you not cut? How will you now know the character of the person? So when you are in a hurry to get married, you're definitely going to make mistakes. That is why we're having too many issues, domestic violence taking over the society, because people rush into marriage without having to know themselves. So they now rush into the marriage, they go into the marriage and begin to know themselves inside the marriage, and there's a problem. Ability to amend becomes a challenge.
With what you're saying now, you seem to have there's a particular culture, I think it's Asian, Indian, somehow they do this arranged marriage a lot, and they just look at a perfect man and bring a perfect woman and say these two people would make a perfect couple, and then they try to marry them, and they grow in love like that and understand each other. So when you say we should look at what our values are instead of the love, it's quite different from what we have in our society, because in our society we see people falling in love first before understanding what they actually want.
And that's where the challenge comes, Nancy.
Okay, so let's go on a very short break, breather, and then I'll come back with some tweets, and then we get a reaction from our guest. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Step into the heartbeat of the world, where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we not dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first face.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
All right, thank you for being there. So we're still discussing domestic violence, and believe me, Dr. Egan has been doing justice to this topic. So let's take some tweets and get her reactions from this. This tweet is from Elizabeth Wellbell. She says, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Women aged 18 to 34 experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence, and over 47% of women have experienced physical or sexual violence. Real love does not include violence. Love shouldn't hurt or degrade you. You are beautiful and worthy of love. Love is rooted in respect and trust. That's a nice one. Okay, so we have this one from Chief Baby. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The aim is to make sure we create a space where victims can be survivors. And then we have this one from Dr. Khan. He says, domestic violence is not always physical. They can degrade you, humiliate you, blame you, scream at you, lie to you, cheat on you, withhold fairness from you, or even just try to control you. Those things can still be domestic violence. And then the last one here we have Portable. He says, my cousin was killed by his supposed girlfriend last night in her apartment. Oh, sorry about that. That's a sad one.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Men experience domestic violence too. I am not all right. Please pray for my family. Well, our heart goes out to Portable. No came there. There's a sad one there. All right, Dr. Egan. Let's take this last tweet from Portable. She said her brother, that goes to buttress what you said earlier, that men also face domestic violence. But it's so tough to understand how a man who is so macho would allow a woman who is kind of small and fragile, do something harmful to them, someone would say.
Hello, Nancy.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, it went off.
Okay, if you can hear me, I wanted you to react to the last tweet from Portable, who said her cousin, who is a man, was killed last night by his wife, by his girlfriend, in her apartment. So I was saying, some people would say women are fragile, they are the weaker vessels. So when you hear a woman killing a man, you begin to wonder, how did it happen?
Nancy, I said earlier when I started that from our research, we've seen that 10% of our men are also abused by their wives. And most times it is not physical, right? They start abusing them emotionally and get psychological. Some women are very mean. Women can hide their attitude for years, but men can hardly hide their attitude like that. Women react spontaneously than men. I told you a recent story of a guy who said the wife was not giving him time, and so he needed to take another wife. And then his religion permits him to marry 4. So he mentioned it to the wife and said, see, I'm going to take another wife because I need to be taken care of. And then the woman starts with so much anger, and he walked away. He left the house because, of course, many men come from very, very, very responsible homes. They have never seen a man raising his hand on a woman, so they will never do it. Some men will never, ever try it. Instead of them to do that, they will just walk away. So he walked away and went to his friend's place and then narrated this story to the friend. And the friend said, my guy, you better sleep here. Tomorrow, you can go back to the house. Then the tension would have been calm. And the man said, oh, my daughter will be missing me. Let me just get back home. I'm sure by now she would have been calm. unfortunately for the man, as he got home, I'm sure Nancy, you would have heard the story too.
Mm-hmm.
As he got home, thinking that the woman would have forgotten what happened in the afternoon. So said hi to her and she responded, not knowing that she was really planning to hurt this guy. As the guy went to do his night prayers, as he bent down on the mat to pray, the woman stabbed him at the back and he died in the pool of blood. Are we getting it? So there was she didn't fight with him. So that fragility you're talking about, women, majority of the women have hearts. They can keep things forever. That's why they will tell you that whatever you give a woman, she will give it back to you times 10. If you give her love, she will give you compassion. Whatever you show her, and she reacted too serious, because if what the husband said to her was like, say, I'm going to take a second wife, how do you know that you married this man? You are from the same religion and you know that your religion does for. Why will it be a problem? If it was a problem to you, you should have reported it to his parents or your own parents, not to kill. So women who kill men sometimes kill men in their sleep or in situations where they are incapacitated. Because if you look at a man like this, no matter how simple that man is, you must be a special woman to go and fight the man physically. So, and the man has been going through emotional abuse. Note that, because she has deprived the man of a lot of things that actually made the man to say, I'm going to take a second wife. So, Portable, I'm so sorry for the loss of your cousin. But he too was not speaking up. He never told the family what he was going through. He may have been going through a lot, but never, ever said it to the family.
A sad story, I must say.
So we always encourage Nancy. That's why we are begging, we're pleading with our men to speak up. I know the man will say, why will I come and speak up and say my wife is abusing me because of the shame? No. You are first a human being before you are a man.
And they will tell you, sometimes some of these men, the complaints they give is not even society, probably their peers. Fellow men will say, you're a man, bottle it up, you're a man, you can handle it. Talks like that.
In the same society, it's their peers that will begin to mock at them.
Yeah.
Why will you mock at a man? Do you know his background?
Okay, so let's look at this second tweet. I want you to react to it. Domestic violence is not always physical. They can degrade you, humiliate you, blame you, scream at you, lie to you, cheat on you, withhold fairness from you, or even just try to control you. These things can be domestic abuse. What's your take on this?
No, it's not can be. It is domestic abuse. It is domestic violence. Those actions alone are domestic violence because they humiliate you, they yell at you, they do things. It will cause you psychological. So it's psychological abuse. That's what I'm saying. Do you know that a woman or a man who goes through that kind of thing can run mad? It is difficult for you to go and seek for help because you know the norm here is that, oh, we expect that domestic violence, we should see some scars on you. That's when we believe that you're being abused, right? But have you checked on the scar inside the heart? That is the one that triggers hypertension, that will degenerate to high blood pressure and begin to bring liver and kidney failure and a lot of things and bring long-lasting ailments. So it is domestic abuse. It's not it can be. No, it is pure domestic abuse.
Let's go back a little to Osinachi's case because her case.
So rest in peace.
Yeah, so rest in peace. I would like to know what's your take on the role religion and cultural, the role religion play in perpetuating some of these acts. Because I remember in her own case, there were stories of her sister going to the church to report these cases, and it was not treated seriously. It was not taken seriously. I mean, they told her to go and pray. So what role, do religion play in domestic violence?
Religion have a role to play because they need to counsel their members and sensitize their members on the need for families to live peacefully and the consequences of being an abuser. So, in the case of Osinachi, may her soul rest in perfect peace. Osinachi herself had mentioned it to her church leader severally, but because her husband was a pastor, I had expected that Her husband should have been given, how do they call it, when they reduced you from your rank in the church?
Given a back seat or something.
The husband should have been given a back seat. That is one of the consequences for being an abuser as a church leader. Because if you're a church leader and you're abusing your spouse, what are you going to teach the younger generation? So when Osinachi reported the case to the church leader, I had expected that they should have had a section with them. And if he persisted, that man should have been derobed as a pastor, taken to the back seats. If that alone would change him. But if he does not, the church would have gone into mediating and said, see, we do not want anybody to die. Stay your separate ways first. Let's see if, the situation can get better. I'm not saying that the church should say divorce. But now that Osinachi is dead, is the church not still ongoing? The church is still ongoing. Osinachi's husband is in prison. Is the church not still on? The church is still on. So everybody is interested about themselves. So the church should train their members and should counsel their members on the need for families to stay in peace. And should say no to domestic violence. They preach it in church because they don't want to lose members.
Oh, goodness. All right, we really don't have much time on this. So let's just talk about support and resources now. How can we support survivors in this journey? Because we see some of these persons, and then how do we just help them through the journey?
Nancy, we need help. The help we need is that we need comprehensive domestic violence legislation. We need the government to enact some laws. Are you getting it? They need to establish a comprehensive federal law specifically addressing domestic violence. And they must ensure that there's uniformity across the state. They should provide clear definition, penalty, and protections for victims. Nancy, if that is done, I'm telling you that domestic violence will be reduced. Because if you know that if you are caught abusing your spouse, you will go to jail. In 48 hours, the judgment will come out. You will serve jail term of 7 years. Nancy, to reduce our burden. Domestic violence, they must include a very broad definition of domestic violence that encompasses physical, emotional, psychological, financial, and sexual. It must be stated in that law very, very well. And then the government must also strengthen enforcement mechanism. We human beings, especially in this our own society, we are very hard not to crack. And then we should also train our law. Right now, as I speak with you, Nancy, we have a department in the Nigerian police force that handles domestic violence. But how strengthened are there? How empowered is that department? I have a case as I speak with you, Nancy. We're already in the in Lagos State Command now with my victim. Okay? She's in that department now seeking for, because you have to follow through. Domestic violence is a criminal offense. So the enforcement agencies or officers that are in charge of this should be trained very, very well on how to handle domestic violence cases sensitively and effectively. Then we must, as a government, establish specialized unit, no compromise, keep it one side. Let me tell you, when I told my victim to go to the state police command, she was afraid. You know that mentality of saying you're going to the police.
Exactly.
So maybe they can, they can take that department out of the police environment and keep it one side so that victims can be free to walk in. There's this thing they say that in the police, and a complainer can become an accuser. You don't know how you move, you can become accuser. So victims are scared to even go and seek redress in the police because of the environment itself. So we are advocating that they should establish a unit and take it out of that ambience of the Nigerian Police Force building so that they can ensure better response and investigation. The victims must be protected, because when a victim comes to report a case to you, you invite the abuser. You not play around with the case and allow the victim to go back to the same house with the abuser. The next thing you will hear that they've killed the victim. So the victim comes to you for help. The first thing you should do is to say, see, depending on the volume of abuse, you will say, can we help you stay apart for a while while we do our investigation? Are you getting it? So that tempers will not rise the more, and then you now launch and say, okay, me, I'm even ready to die. Some abusers will tell you, I will kill you and I will kill myself. And we have seen it happen, Nancy.
Yeah, countless of them.
So, thank you. So victims should be protected. We should facilitate easy access to protection orders for victims, and so that we ensure swift action to keep abusers away from victims and their children. Okay. Government should help us and create shelter. Well, they should fund it and create shelter and skill acquisition in that shelter, so that when these victims leave the abuser environment, they have somewhere to stay for like 2 to 3 or 4 months, right? In the process of waiting to get themselves balanced, they can learn some skills.
Okay. You're talking of empowerment now. I wanted to ask you how we can support some of these survivors, through healing and empowerment.
So that is it. So we can support them. We give them shelter first, because most of the challenges we have is that they don't even have where to go to. So where do they stay? And then finally, Nancy, government should also assist victims with legal aid support.
Okay.
You will need a lawyer.
Yeah.
That will follow through with you, right? Yeah. So government should give that, okay, on this kind of cases, domestic violence cases, it's going to be free of charge, so that we can get this sorted. And then government should also help. We as NGOs and as support group, we are going to be giving counseling and support services, right? And then they should also encourage and assist us to create public awareness campaign. This is Domestic Violence Month. October is Domestic Violence Month.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to be on this platform, because this month is our month. And Nancy, guess what? Yeah. This month is my month of birth.
Oh, really?
So you see the passion and you see the connection where it's coming from.
I can see.
So there should be public awareness campaign. We should launch nationwide campaign to raise awareness about domestic violence. The science and available resources. We should get communities. Nancy, you'll be shocked. The level of domestic violence in our rural area is, it's crazy. It's scary. It's a day-to-day life thing. It's normal for someone to abuse his or her spouse in our rural areas.
Okay, so now let's talk about education. Just like you've mentioned, going to the rural area, the number of that shows that these people do not have the adequate education. They are not fully aware of their rights, even when their rights are being trampled upon. Now, let's talk about how do we educate young people about these signs, and giving consent in a relationship.
Nancy, we have to constantly do advocacy. We have to speak in all gatherings. We need to talk about this in all gatherings, religious gatherings, social gatherings, schools, communities. We need to speak about it everywhere we find ourselves. Even as community leaders. Okay, imagine a village chief that is beating his wife. So what is he going to tell the young people in the village? So certain rights should be deprived from people who want to take leadership position. For instance, you want to contest for governor, we know that you are well bitter. We cannot even afford to even answer yourself. Do you understand? So certain positions should be deprived. We should say this is part of it. You want to be a village chief, yet you pound on your wife every day. Government cannot recognize you. They can't give it to you. So when you know that there are some things that you will suffer if it is known that you are an abuser, it will solve 60% of our problem, Nancy.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
yes,
I'm talking about men. I love that. I love that. In fact, remember there was this senator one time that was, seen on camera abusing a lady in a shop. And few months later, he was also elected. He was re-elected. So these things happen in our society. We see it every day. So how can men be allies in preventing domestic violence? Because we can't do this alone as women. We have to bring in the men. They need to understand what it takes, to have a domestic violent-free or toxic-free relationship. So how can we bring them into this fight against domestic violence?
It is also in advocacy. The men are more, even for instance, in our National Assembly now, we have more men
Okay.
They should help us and enact these laws. Let them not look at it as a woman thing. Nancy, I have seen a woman who beats her husband. In fact, he will beat him and sit on top of him. And to step in. The man says she not even come here that he enjoys it. Is that not madness? I have seen a man that would usually close from work and cannot get home. He will sleep in a workshop close to his own house, because if he gets home, the wife will beat him. Are you getting it?
Even
so the men know. So what we are pleading with the men is that the men should help us. I know that women are predominantly victims, but we also have men who are victims. Even in that National Assembly or State Assembly or wherever they are, that they'll be enacting this law, are victims of abuse. I mean, the men. But they can't say it because they don't know how to, like you said, oh, you're a man, how can you be abused? What are you talking? There are some men that cannot even operate where their wives are. Right? So what we want from the men is to help us and enact this law. Support the women so that we enact this law. But you will see that some of them will be the one that will say no. You know why? Because they are abusers too.
Yeah.
So how do you give positions to abusers? Like that man, that senator that did that thing, his party was supposed to take away the ticket from him to show him that he did something that was wrong. But yeah, he was supported. But you know, Kama has a way of paying back. Kama paid him back the next time he wanted to contest.
All right, Dr. Egan, we have to go, but not without you giving us some parting words. I can see your passion, the zeal in you doing this work. You know, when you talk like this, I now begin to wonder what you do in the field, how you talk to the women with so much passion, you know. So how is the work going? How is the advocacy? What's the response from women?
Nancy, is overwhelming because women are beginning to be liberated. Some women don't even know their rights, but now they are beginning to know their rights. And we are saying that addressing domestic violence in our society requires a comprehensive approach, Nancy. In the field, it's so fulfilling for me because we are beginning to see that our advocacy and our awareness is working. In fact, if I see you abusing your wife or your husband, be rest assured that you are in for a serious one with me because I'll take the matter up. Seriously. And there's none that have taken up that have not gotten a headway. So the law enforcement agency are also working with us, but we need them to be empowered. They know. So the work in the field is very sweet, even though it's very, very tedious. I speak against domestic violence everywhere I find myself. On social media, Nancy, my Facebook is Moments with a Gun. I speak there live Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. I go out to the field. Everywhere I find myself, I talk about it's a no, no, no to domestic violence. I've lost a friend's daughter to domestic violence. The husband threw her from the balcony and she died. Up to this moment, the mother hasn't been herself. But this child used to run to them and tell them that this is what I'm facing. And they'll be like, oh no, it's a taboo. Our family, oh no, we don't do this. Now the girl is dead. I can't even ask the mother, how about the family? You jail the man, and so has he brought back the child? The answer is no. So prevention is better than cure. So Nancy, you too have a role to play. You need to seriously help us in this advocacy. And thank you so much for bringing me live on this program because at least so many people are going to listen to this. We are saying that it is a no, no, no to domestic violence of any kind, be it physical, be it emotional, be it economical, be it psychological. In fact, be whatever form, financial, we are saying no, no, no to it. We want a peaceful family because peaceful family translates to a better society. The challenges we're having now, Nancy, in the society is that the homes are shattered. And you cannot have progress in a domestic violence home. You can't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Egan, for coming on the show today. That was a very impactful speech or discussion, I must say. Thank you so much. And hope to see you again some other time to talk on this same kind of topic. I hope you would oblige us the invitation when given to you.
Nancy, I'll be ever ready. Anytime, any day.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, to all our survivors and those affected by domestic violence, we stand with you. Your stories matter, your voice counts, and your hearing